Well, thank you all for staying. Irina, thank you for sharing this film, which is quite tender and lovely and nostalgic perhaps, and yet also troubling in a good way. I can't wait to hear more about the context and the process of making the film. Okay, so I will now introduce our moderator for the Q&A, Anya Tropnikova. Anya is a Slavic languages and literatures and film and media studies PhD candidate here at Yale. Her dissertation tracks transnational film confluences between Japan and Russia through the works of Kurosawa Akira and Andrei Tarkovsky, among others. She has 2 articles on Tsilyk's earlier work to be released later this year, one in an edited volume entitled Reframing Eastern European Cinema, and another on the contemporary Russophone documentary. She has additionally published in the Russian Review and on Eastern European animation, apparatus, film, media, and digital cultures in Central and Eastern Europe. Anya works in experimental animation herself, having collaborated on a short film with a poet whose name is going to be hard for me to say, Suchi Pritchard. Great. In Counterclock's literary arts journal Patchwork. This is her second time co-organizing a screening of Tsilyk's film, previously serving as discussant for a showing of 2020's The Earth is Blue as an Orange, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about tonight, part of the 2022 new Ukrainian cinema series at Amherst Cinema in Massachusetts. And for our director of Rock, Paper, Grenade, Iryna Tsilyk is a Ukrainian filmmaker and writer based in Kyiv. She is the director of the award-winning documentary film, The Earth is Blue as an Orange, which won the directing award at the Sundance Film Festival in 2020, as well as numerous other honors. Tsilyk is known for her, we just saw the film that you're known for, so I don't need to read that part. Moreover, Tsilyk is the author of 8 books, poetry, prose, children's books, published in Ukraine. Many of her poems, short stories, and essays have been translated into multiple languages and presented in different international publications, literary festivals, and events. Over the years of Russia's war in Ukraine, Iryna has taken part in different literary readings, documentary shootings, tutoring for children, etc. in the war zone. At the same time, her husband, Artem Cheka, became a soldier of armed forces of Ukraine twice, which we just saw his photo, right? In the credits there. Iryna's recent writing and films mostly reflect on different angles of these experiences. Now, please join me in welcoming Anya and Iryna to the stage.
These are such comfortable, nice little chairs. Thank you. So I wanted first to get started besides thanking you so much for being here today. It is a huge honor for me personally, for all of us here. I know it's just divine seeing you in person and seeing your work in person. So thank you again. And I also wanted to reassert and by our I mean Slavic Department at Yale's, condemnation of this brutal war. We mourn its victims, and we unambiguously call an end for Russia's illegal occupation of Ukraine and express our hopes for imminent and lasting peace. So, yeah. With that, with that, I think we can delve into the film, which definitely touches aspects of that, especially for Timofey's coming-of-age story. So I think first I'd like to talk to you about some links to Earth is Blue as an Orange that I see with this film, despite the fact that obviously they're working within different modes. So documentary for the former film and narrative fiction film for this one. And coming of age is one of the things, right? So I think coming of age keeps cropping up in multiple works of yours, including the written and poetry. And I would love to hear some words from you about what pulls you to revisit these stories.
Hey, sorry. So first of all, thank you for your kind feedback. And I never thought about that. So of course, I know that I'm interested in coming of age stories also as a viewer. I watched so many of them. I'm still watching these films. And maybe I still feel, okay, maybe it's kind of an exaggeration. I'm not a teenager. I'm the woman who is 41 years old. But at the same time, I really feel as a beginner still in the filmmaking, in many other fields. And maybe, but at the same time, I'm the mother. I have a kid who is teenager himself. He's almost 14. And this observing of a lonely figure of a kid than a teenager is so important for me. And probably this topic is one of the most important for me. And that is why I'm trying to look at it from different angles. Also the theme of the family and relationships between broken adults and children. This is key theme in my life and art. And that is why I'm trying to explore it from different angles. But maybe the choice of this film was quite an accident choice, but at the same time, I don't believe in accidents. Of course, we are trying to explore some painful themes which hurts ourselves. And in fact, this attempt to make this film was my dialogue to my parents, first of all. Of course, I did a film about my husband's family, but not only. This is a film about my generation, but also about our parents, because when I grew up, when I became an adult, I suddenly saw so many things with another perspective. And suddenly I found kind of a power in myself to forgive many things, to thank for many things. And also this film is my attempt to talk to my son and his generation as well. Because I am also the mother who is doing so many mistakes. I know that some of my deeds are quite, toxic. But okay, parents know. So films help us to build some bridges between us and also between generations. So I guess I had this task, first of all.
Is this on? Yes. That's so perfectly said and segues right into my next question, which was going to be specifically about how you conceive, or the role that you conceive of art making in terms of processing trauma, right? There are several traumatic events that happen both in the history of Timofey, and I know in your other works as well, this is a key theme. Technology seems to play a role and crops up in this film and in The Earth is Blue as an Orange. And you have a very, I think it's a marvelous way of including the footage of the subject of the camera in the final footage itself, which I think is very unique and interesting, and I'm endlessly in love with it. So I would love to hear more from you about how you conceive art making in terms of its relationship to trauma.
Well, I'm probably the representative of that generation of Ukrainians who had many traumas in our past, because talking about my past, my experience, I was born in Soviet times, and then the Soviet Union collapsed, and we suddenly found ourselves in a completely new reality, so shaky, so traumatic for all of us. First of all, for our adults, but also for us, kids, teenagers. And then so many things had happened. First of all, I had a crisis of identity. I remember how it happened to me when in the 90s I suddenly found out that I don't know almost anything about the culture of my country, about my language, because I grew up as a Russified kid. I spoke Russian language. I was in love with Russian culture only, and suddenly I revealed that there is another dimension which was hidden for me. And that was quite a big shock. And I started that journey, and many people of my generation, they also started that journey from different turning points. But in fact, it was quite traumatic journey, because we had to find the answers, who we are, where are we going, in which team we would like to be in, and probably we are still looking for many answers. So we had many special points, turning points. I was, for example, the active participant of 2 revolutions. Then the war has started, and all these 10 years of war, I feel so focused on this theme. Unfortunately, I never was able to somehow escape or to hide. And my husband, who became a soldier first in 2015-16, and that was such a surreal experience for us, for our family. And then he came back, and we thought that it will never happen again. But then Russia's full-scale invasion started. And we had also so many other traumas in our past. For example, the trauma of poverty. That was something which is so familiar for many people of my age who grew up in this post-Soviet gray, gloomy times. And of course, we had different backgrounds, but most of the families, they were really suffering from poverty. And it took me years to understand how it actually affected me. I bought all sneakers I wanted, but I'm still trying to deal with that. Oh, I just realized that you asked about something actually else, not about the traumas, but the art as a healing tool. But in fact, what can we do? We can try to reflect, and all of us, I mean my colleagues in different fields, in literature and cinema, we are all trying to find the ways how to explain to ourselves and the others what actually had happened to us and what is still happening. And especially in the times of war, many artists had to ask themselves, what can we do? And I still try to convince myself that films matter, books matter, and in fact, this is true, because I really see how Ukrainian modern culture helps all of us to build that bridges between us and people from the different worlds who just started to explore who Ukrainians are. But also, I believe that people who tell stories, they are not only the victims of the war, they act somehow. For example, the characters of The Earth is Blue as an Orange, I felt so inspired when I met this family, because despite the fact that they lived in red zone, and of course they had many obvious trials, they were trying to live fully despite all the circumstances, and they were trying to tell stories about themselves instead of some other people would tell stories about them. So this is exactly what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, I feel guilty because so many colleagues of mine, they are fighting on a front, and they had to take weapons in their arms to defend Ukraine. And so many of my colleagues and friends are already killed. So it's impossible to compare. But at the same time, I still believe that my other colleagues who are trying to do something on this cultural field, they do actually such an important job today. And I feel really grateful to all of them, because we are all trying to somehow, shape the form of what is going on from different angles.
And shape the form of the history that.
Yeah, we're also working with memory, we're working with the past, but what is probably most important thing, that artists, they also work with the concept of the future. And this is so important, especially when we don't know what will happen next. But
we can hope. The red zone, by the way, is that area of Donbass in Ukraine, in case that wasn't clear. I will ask a couple more questions, and then I will open it up to the audience to make sure that I'm not just taking all of the questions. I noticed another, so I keep coming back to The Earth is Blue and Orange, and so the power to make narrative, I think, is a central conceit of that film. And here, if we look extra diegetically, that's also a conceit, right? Because Artem Chekh is your husband, and he's the one who wrote this novel. Do you see yourself potentially making something similar? Because I see the Toma, right? Toma, the love interest in this story, seems to resemble you just a little bit, but I'm not sure. Only because of the bangs. Only because of the bangs. So I was imagining, what would this film look like if you were telling your own story, right? Where would the overlaps be? And one overlap that I think would probably be a mainstay is the cats. Because the cats, yes, the cats in The Earth is Blue and Orange are also just characters who are in the story themselves and are a big part of the picture.
Okay, animals are cool. This is the answer. No, did I understand you right that you asked me, am I going also to tell my personal stories? Yes, at the moment I'm developing the new project, and it is quite an unexpected project for me because I dared to step on a completely new territory of animation. I'm developing the project of an animated documentary, and it will be very intimate and personal film essay, quite poetic essay about myself, my family, my relationship with my husband in the times of war, and also my friends, my bubble, again, about my generation, who are all these people are so affected by the war, and we are changing year by year on different levels, including very subtle ones. So I want to reflect on those invisible things. At least I want to try. And but I don't know how many years it will take, but I hope that one day I will come back and I will show you this film as well.
I hope that it's soon enough that I'll still be here, because I would be delighted. Last question, and then I'll open it up, is about the title of Rock, Paper, Grenade. Of course, in Ukrainian, it's called I FELIX. But, the English title is Rock, Paper, Grenade. And I know that The Earth is Blue and Orange's title is actually an allusion to a poem by Paul Eluard. The poem was dropped on leaflets over Vichy, France, as something for the citizens to pick up and feel encouraged despite the times being fairly grim. So I wondered if there was a play here also with this title, and I wondered if there were other literary influences that you were thinking of as you were building this project, just like I know there were when you were building your last project.
Well, I always feel nervous when people ask me about the titles of my films, because I know these titles are weird. It's difficult to remember them, but it just so happened. For example, when I was trying to find a special title for The Earth is Blue and Orange, I remember the conversation with one Ukrainian literary critic. I told her that I'm looking for some poetic formula that could convey that sense of surreality that I usually feel in the war zone, because it is full of very weird, bizarre crossroads of things which are actually shouldn't be together. All these, neighboring dimensions of war and peace. And she just mentioned this quote from Paul Eluard, and I immediately borrow it. But talking about this title, I don't even remember how it happened to us. But again was trying to somehow play with some contrast thing, because rock, paper, grenade, it reminds you of this game. It is something not really serious, but at the same time, grenades and all the other weapons are so serious in our lives. And also, we have so many moments when the war, it is so close to our kids today, and it was so close before. And this is a real moment from my husband's life when Felix was actually teaching him how to use automat Kalashnikova. And, on the one hand, we need to know how to use weapons to defend ourselves. On another hand, as a mother, I have very mixed feelings that our children are so deeply affected by all these knowledges. So that is why probably I chose this title, which is kind of a funny, but not that funny.
That's a perfect description of the title.
I just
yes,
found it
kind of funny, but not that funny at all, actually. Wonderful. Yes, Oksana, please.
Thank you. I think I can.
You can. Okay.
Please use the mic.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Iryna. That's incredible film. I would say even the word beautiful. It's impossible to use it, and it's so precise. Created the atmosphere and the loneliness of Timofey. It's felt, and this cold, and when they constantly cold. And I myself was growing as a teenager in Moscow. A little bit I remember this precisely this coldness, this also poor conditions, and it's very, very precise. And I want to ask you, because I haven't, of course, read the novel, but it seems to be it's quite a big novel, very personal novel. How you, as a filmmaker, transform novel into script into film? Because this is your first feature. It's incredibly done. So one question about that, and another question, it is late 90s when approximately?
The story starts in 1993 and then 1997, 8.
So it's in 90s, but you created this material world again, so like felt, basically like you're watching a documentary about that time, film that. How did you work with this? Was it difficult? Was it easy? What was challenges as a filmmaker you encountered to create that?
Thank you so much for your feedback. So first, the novel and the film are quite different. Of course, the novel, I always say it's better because novels are always better than films. The adaptations. But I'm joking, they're just different. And I had such a big freedom because my husband, he worked with me as the co-author. So we changed many things. And also, I should confess, I borrowed many scenes from my childhood. For example, the opening scene when Felix is dancing. That was my father dancing. He was drunk and he was listening to Pink Floyd and dancing in an underwear. And I was 5 years old watching him. And this image is still in front of my eyes. And, this image of the character of the Felix is so familiar for me because I knew men like him in my life as well, and probably the children of my, generation, we all knew them. And so we changed the story, but at the same time we saved the world of the characters. We just changed some of the scenes. And by the way, it's quite interesting that the final part in the book and the film are different, but at the same time both true. The book finishes with a very heartbreaking scene for me. That was a real moment in the life of my husband. He lost Felix for many years because he just disappeared from their life. And then he met him accidentally, and he was a completely lost person. and Felix didn't recognize him. When he started talking to him, he asked him, "Who are you?" So this is the title of the novel. So such an important figure in his life, he just didn't recognize him. But later, when we started to work on a script, suddenly one of the relatives of my husband Artem informed us about this phone call. We didn't know about it, that Felix was trying to reach the grandmother, and then he found out that she passed away and he disappeared again. And we, of course, tried to find some information about him, and we sent some requests to the Union of Veterans of Afghanistan, war in Afghanistan, but I don't know why we still didn't find anything. Maybe they just didn't want to share this information. So it's kind of a secret, and we don't know actually how his life has ended, unfortunately. And talking about the second question about the reconstruction of this world of our childhood, that was such an exciting process. And first of all, I had a great team, and most of us, we are people of approximately the same age. So that was a collective, how to say, puzzle, because many of us, we actually added something. And that was quite unexpected for me to realize that I forgot many things about this world of objects. So I had to refresh my memory, and I worked with documentary pictures. For example, the series of pictures by Lise Sarfati. She is French photographer, but she did fantastic job in post-Soviet Russia, also Ukraine. And I loved these pictures. I borrowed many details and also colors. Her pictures mostly consist of blue, yellow, red, and green colors. And I love this because so often these films about post-Soviet reality represent, you know, this grayish, gloomy, dark, image. But my memory actually worked differently, and I still remember everything in colors. As you know, these pictures made on that yellowish Kodak film or greenish Fuji. So I really wanted to go this way, and I didn't regret. And of course, we had to find so many props and other stuff, and I have many interesting stories. For example, costumes. Our costume designer, who is actually my younger sister, yeah, this is a family business. So she used the real clothes of my family, because as it often happens, we sometimes save these clothes, for years somewhere on our countryside, in our countryside houses. So she found all that packs with my t-shirts, my mother's dresses, and so now the characters, they wear our outfits. And also the final part where we see the adult Timothy, he's in the clothes of my husband, the real one. So I guess this is kind of a nice gesture to say hi, to ourselves.
It's an excellent gesture of authenticity. Very authentic. Any further questions? Excellent. Thank you, Mark.
So I was really drawn to your use of architecture, Iryna, and specifically walls. I mean, we've already talking a little bit about the design of it, but of the film. And there were, from the first, I think, few scenes, in the home, in the apartment, with the wallpaper and the ways that you position the camera, to kind of feel this enclosure. So that was one kind of like thing that was sticking out to me in terms of your use of walls. That's not the most eloquent way to put it, but walls. And then the other part, one of the other uses I saw was murals. these huge murals, right? The tiled one we see, I think, when the father is waiting for his son to get out of school. And then we see it again. I think that's like a probably Soviet workers, some kind of the, socialist artwork. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about if you were thinking about conceptually this part, whether it's just the walls or about the architecture in general.
Well, I mean, these apartments are so familiar for people like me who grew up in those quite a small apartments. And talking about the walls, first we considered to build a set because it is always easier. But then our budget was too humble to do that. And we found a real apartment with a very appropriate geography. But of course, you always feel stuck, in those small kitchens and rooms. But at the same time, it works so perfectly because it somehow explains how we actually felt in those times. We felt trapped, usually. So maybe those small spaces and the walls, as you mentioned, maybe it has some also symbolic sense. And I don't know, I just started thinking about Pink Floyd's walls, which should be breaking. But yeah, I actually grew up with Pink Floyd in my apartment all the time, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. So maybe everything, is somehow connected. And mirrors, I'm not sure that I wanted to somehow use it consciously, but this is such a familiar detail. I don't know, you probably also had mirrors in your...
Murals, not mirrors, but murals.
Murals. I'm sorry, I thought mirrors.
Or the tropical mural.
This is my passion. I really like mosaic, I'm not sure. Yeah, mosaic. And we still have so many of them in Ukraine, and I had to shoot almost everything in Kyiv. Unfortunately, I also didn't have a possibility for an expedition to some provincial town. It would be much better for the film, but okay. Even Kyiv, despite it is such a modern European city today, it has some, small oases of that life from the past. And also I love this mosaic pannos, so I was actually hunting for them.
Thinking of Marina Ergerbach's project Klondike, where there's a very similar kind of mural, tropical mural, that is done to try to open the space. Do you remember? I don't remember. Yeah. Especially in this space that a lot of people are having to share in order to try to trick your mind. So,
I forgot about that shot. To be honest, I should to refresh it.
How was it for your son, Andrei, playing this role? Did he like it?
Okay, ask me how did I feel?
How did you
because
feel?
In fact, that was very challenging experience for myself because I had a very good lesson for the future. I will never ever work with my relatives except my husband. He's fine. I mean, he was really comfortable person to work with. I loved this collaboration. But it's not that easy to work with your kid. At the same time, he was doing his best, and despite all the conflicts between the mother and the kid on the set, which is not a very good thing for the film team, but when he hears cameras rolling, sound is rolling, he immediately starts working, and he worked as an adult sometimes 12 hours in a row per day. So he did a good job. And what I like about Andrei, that he usually has so many ideas about the script, especially about the replicas of the characters. So some of, for example, when we did this scene of the first awkward dinner when they met for the first time, that was his idea. He improvised and he suddenly asked, did you kill people? And that was so brilliant for me because only children can ask these kind of things. So he sometimes actually proposes some really good ideas. So, okay. I mean, but by the way, I should share that it could be interesting that the guy who played the role of Felix, he's not the actor. This is his debut and the first experience of acting in the cinema. He's a very famous poet and musician and kind of an icon for many people of my age. He's a very charismatic person, punk, I don't know. We know him from different sides. And that was an accident that I decided to shoot my son and my friend Izdrek, this poet. But they did their job so well, I think so. And also my documentary filmmaker's background helped me a lot. Because when I decided that I will risk and I will use professional and non-professional actors, of course, my previous experiences helped me to work with non-professional actors because I really saw that Andriy and Izdrek, they feel not that good when they are trapped with, some exact replicas so I gave them quite a big freedom to talk how they feel. And of course, it wasn't so easy for the editing part, but in terms of authenticity, and I think it worked quite well.
I think so too. Do we have a last question? I will ask the last question. I mean, I'll keep asking you questions all night if you let me.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, excellent. So we naturally actually came to this topic of music, right? So could you tell us a little bit about the symphony that we hear in the background, especially when Felix is, dancing, because that keeps coming up. As well as I noticed that in your previous film, Earth is Blues and Orange, you are very careful to only have diegetic music. Mm-hmm. And here, that's almost the case, but not quite. So how did your feelings towards music and film, music for film, change from that film to this one?
This film is quite different, and the music is such an important element for this story because when we were teenagers, music was often that window to the other worlds, especially this foreign music, hip hop, I don't know, all these favorite bands. They were giving us a chance, to dive into these other dimensions, and it really helped us. Also, I remember how we started to discover Ukrainian music. That was also quite a shocking knowledge that we have these cool guys who can also do hip hop and the other things. But talking about the classical music, the real prototype of Felix, he was a big fan of music, and he tortured my husband because he forced him to play again and again the same compositions, especially Polonaise by Oginsky. So my husband, who graduated from music school in that times, he never played again. So he never came back to the piano. But, for example, the choice of Bolero by Ravel, I wanted to use Pink Floyd as it was in my memories, but it is too expensive. So I was trying to find some solution, but maybe this decision is even better because the composition of Bolero, it works. This music has some circles. So it's like Ouroboros who is eating itself. And it also says something about their relationships and how they felt stuck into those circles of guilt and some toxic, relationship. So, and talking about the rest of the music, when he was coming back to his room, that was kind of an escape when you are, switch on your magnetophone. I don't know this word in English.
Boombox.
Yeah, boombox. Yeah, and you are diving into this other world. And we also had the composer. He's a talented guy who is originally from Ukraine, but now he lives in New York. His name is Fima Chupakhin. So, yeah, I was trying to play with different kind of music. And the Earth is Blues and Orange, you are right. I didn't use any music specially created for the film, just those compositions which were played by the characters. But different film bring different decisions.
Especially in a different genre. That's very true. Well, thank you so much for this fantastic talk, for being here today, for showing us your film. And I look forward to seeing your next project when it comes around.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
5 years, 10, I'll be there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.